All right, so we're gonna get one more perspective on here. I'm gonna bring up Isaiah Carter. He's gonna come on for a few minutes. Those of you the guys that don't know him, political pundit. He weighs in on New York City all the time. Former Democrat. Like to get his take on what happened last night and what's going down. Isaiah, what's up, brother? Welcome to the stage, dude.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. What's going on, gentlemen? And real quick, before I say anything, Eric, my condolences to you, brother. I've been meaning to say that for a minute. So yeah, my condolences to you, and my love to you and your family. John,
thank you.
I'm still trying to process this. If there's one thing that I am as I can't say that I'm surprised by this. I can't say I'm surprised because this city has been taken over by Midwestern white transplants since at least 2008. Since at least. And I've been up here now. I'm not from New York City originally. I'm from Baltimore. And so my perspective is a little bit different. This is from like the kind of like the outside looking in while actually being here. You know, like I was here when New York was gentrifying like in like 2008, 2009. This is the end result of that. This is truly the end result of that. Go ahead.
I agree with you, dude. But like, what do you think about this right now? Like, what we're talking about now is because, you know, immediately after Zohran won, which, by the way, I'm not surprised because I've been saying it for months. I'm like, this guy's going to win the Democratic primary. He's running a campaign. Everybody else is twiddling their thumbs. Everybody else is like, yeah, we're just going to keep going on news stations that nobody's watching. You know, and we're not going to go out on the street, and I'm going to drive around in my Charger, and I'm not going to answer any questions, and Eric Adams going to hide and not take any questions. Yeah. And so, like, it was very obvious. But, like, what we're talking about is immediately after this happens, the whole right comes out and says, Eric Adams, the savior. Eric Adams, we must immediately get behind Eric Adams. And the way I'm looking at this right now, the way I'm looking at the race right now is I see that Zohran Mamdani, as it sits right now, remains the front runner for the seat of New York City mayor. Andrew Cuomo sits in number 2. You have a Curtis Lewa behind him, a Jim Walden behind him, and an Eric Adams in 5th place. If Eric Adams was in the Democratic primary last night, he gets slaughtered. Adrian Adams would have slaughtered Eric Adams.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not understanding the hype. I understand the fear. I understand people saying, I don't want a socialist as a mayor. But wouldn't that necessarily mean that I would think that to mean that you should then get behind the candidate that has the most shot to win at this point, which is Andrew Cuomo?
I mean, true, but Andrew Cuomo has already, I mean, these guys, the communists were ready for him. The communists were ready for him from day one. The Democrat, like even everyone within the machine was ready for him. From Tish James, like everybody who took him down. Look at that. Like everybody who took him down. Tish James and all the rest of the socialists, they wanted him gone. They got him out. And now, and again, they would just like the cycle would continue. Okay. And then on top of that, like, I'm kind of with you that if Cuomo does drop out completely, which at this point I'm convinced needs to happen, Adams would have a better shot. But I just don't understand how you've got status quo. Like right now, Eric Adams, like in an Eric Adams Zohran race, Eric Adams represents the status quo. And they are going to hammer that man hard. It's going to be weird because communists really don't know how to approach Black men. They really don't. I'm like, I have to put the racial spin on this. Communists do not know how to attack him. Okay, so they're not really going to know what to do.
Yeah, they can't be racist, right? That anything we say could be misconstrued as racist. Like they're afraid. They're from the Midwest. They're like you said. They're white Midwestern people who really come from really homogenous societies where they're not used to dealing with other ethnicities. I totally agree.
Exactly. So that could work in Eric Adams's favor. But like you said earlier in your, you were doing your best impression of 50 Cent in your video. I saw that. Like, like seriously, he thought he was in the club, like his first hit. Anyways.
Which one? His shirtless videos?
You saw that? Like, exactly. There you go. 50 Cent. There you go. But not like Eric Adams. I don't like him either. I mean, clearly, all you brothers in this room have deeper reasons to hate to not like him, and that's another like episode of the show. This guy, to me, Eric Adams is a fence sitter. Eric Adams is a fence sitter, and that's why I don't trust him. This guy sat back matter of fact, like you mentioned in your video, this guy sat back and let these leftists do whatever they wanted with the city. There is no indication that things would get better that he would pivot just because Trump would endorse him. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that Trump is going to endorse Eric. But again, it's more or less a status quo versus this shiny new communist who's promising free bus rides. I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Well, that's a good point you brought up, right? What's the difference between Mamdani offering free bus ride?
Eric went out again. He went out again. But so I know where he's going though. He's saying like, what's the difference between Mandani offering a free bus ride than an Eric Adams giving free debit cards to go eat, giving free this, free hotels, free everything, free healthcare? What's really the difference? And I'm part of that take too. Is like I don't see much of a difference with a Zohran Mamdani and Eric Adams. Like, so
I mean, the one difference that I see is that, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, black people in this town, again, and I got to put the race on this real quick. I'm serious. Black people are going to suffer under a Mamdani administration in ways that you wouldn't believe. Okay.
But why? Tell us.
Why? Yeah, why? Because they, quite simply, they have no use for us. They have no use for us. In many cases, I've been saying this for a while now. Democrats have been telling black folk they've been done with us for years. When they put illegals in these homeless shelters throughout the city, they were putting them in black neighborhoods. When I lived in Brownsville, when I lived in Brooklyn, there are like three or four homeless shelters in my neighborhood, in the neighborhood down there. All of them were filled with illegals. Black people, blacks and Hispanics, were Cuomo's firewall. Now that's gone. There's no incentive, especially when you're bringing in more illegals. When you're bringing in more illegals, and they're doing it much more quietly now. When you bring in more illegals, you essentially have more of them than you have of black and Hispanic. So guess what? They don't need to listen to us. They don't need to talk to us because we're going to ask questions. Especially if we're middle and working class. And you've already had people asking, well, what are the Democrats doing for us in the first place? This guy, and I was actually speaking to my fiance about this. Zohran the way it's very simple. Zohran is a liar. He's promising things he doesn't even have the authority to do. How are you as the mayor going to promise fast and free buses when the MTA is a state organization, when it was a state agency?
So like, I think, and the point that Eric was making, and I think the point that we're all getting at here is everything you're saying Eric Adams is guilty of as well. Everything. And right now, the MTA is free, dude. Just a bunch of suckers, a couple, maybe 20% of the riders, a couple of suckers are reaching into their pocket and actually paying. When I take the train, I pay. When I take the bus, I pay. But nobody else is. The majority of people are just walking on. I mean, MTA's policy is that, if they come on, they come on, and really the NYPD at this point is really doing nothing about it. The only thing they're doing is they're going and they're locking homeless people up and for them being homeless and mentally ill. And those cases are getting declined prosecution. And those people are back out on the street the next day. And so like Eric Adams, when I look at the amount of money was spent, and that's the other thing. When we look at this migrant crisis, when we look how Eric Adams treated black neighborhoods, we're up to about, it's not totally calculated this way. Right now, they're accusing him of spending $9 billion. I'm saying it's more closer to $12 or $15 billion. He took $15 billion. That's more than every sanctuary state and every sanctuary city combined.
Oh my God.
He lit it on fire, dude. And he took all those shelters and where'd he dump them? In black neighborhoods. My thing is like, what really is the major difference between Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo? Because he's the same guy. They're the same candidate, in my opinion. And the Zohran Mamdani.
I'm at a loss for words. I really am, because I did not expect. There's so much about this, and I'm going to be talking about this in my own space in a few minutes. But this guy, like, how did New York City get to this point? 2001, we had 9/11. 27, almost 3,000 people lost their lives in World Trade Center. You mean to tell me, not even a quarter century later, not even 25 years later, we're bringing in a paleo communist? The Democrats put a paleo communist. I don't refer to Islam as Islam, because Islam is a totalitarian religion and has a lot of elements of communism that you see even before there was even a name for it. So I refer to it as paleo communism. 24 years after that, and we put a guy in office, a guy as the Democrat frontrunner who hasn't been a citizen of the United States for 10 years. Only been here 7 years. I have lived in New York longer than he's been a citizen of the country. And this is this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do. We just hand the country off. We just hand the greatest city. I love New York City with a passion. This city means so much to me, even though I'm not originally from here. And I'm just like, oh, well, that's it. Dems just hand the country off to our enemies and just go, inclusion.
But here's the thing. You're asking the guys to come save us from these people, the ones that were too cowardly to stand up to the DSA and the Democratic Party. And by the way, I'm not just saying exclusive of Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. I'm also talking about the New York GOP here. We've allowed the DSA to hijack the Democratic Party. I mean, Democrats are directly responsible for that. And this election is going to have national implications. Like Zohran Mamdani is a rock star right now across the United States of America. Rock star. He's the next AOC, dude. 2028, there is going to be a surge for a DSA candidate for the president of the United States. And till today, right now, I don't hear one clear strategy from either the Democratic Party or the GOP to stop this from happening. And that's my big issue. It's like, you know what? Let's vote for the controlled destruction as opposed to the faster one. And it's like, it's honestly, you know what it makes me want to do?
What?
I'm just like, I'm going to go out into nature. I'm going to pray to God. I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to do the things I need to do. I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm not going to worry about it. Because if you give me a corporate socialist and another fake socialist that comes from Hollywood, if you give me these two guys, who am I voting for? I'm just going to give it to God, and I'm just going to be like, you know what? I'm done with all this, and I think that's what we're seeing.
Listen, Isaiah, I watch your stuff. You're a great man. I look forward to you being on the podcast again. I apologize, friends, listeners. My service is terrible today. I'm remote, so I'm going to jump out. I'll see you Friday. I'll be watching. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Eric. My love to you and your family once again, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Get your stalling fixed, Eric. Elon Musk, your stalling sucks.
I have heard that. I have heard.
No, it's good, but he's in a rural area. It's usually pretty good.
Yeah, you got to get to a town, Eric.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marlon.
No, I was just gonna say to your point about the transplants into New York City. You look at the areas again. I'm on the city's website, looking at the poll results. You look at the areas that voted for Zohran. Those are transplant areas in the city. You know, the areas that are heavy on Cuomo, or the areas where you still have native New Yorkers, to speak, still in the city. You know. And those are the older populations, by the way, of the city.
Exactly.
Now, but I'll say to that, whose fault was letting New York City become like that? And that fault is the old time machine that was there. You know, the people who control these machines, right? They need cheap labor, and that's for the same reason why they no longer care about black people. Okay, because the cheap labor comes from those migrants. It comes from those illegals. Okay,
exactly.
And the thing is, if you look at a pattern with Democrats, every couple of decades, Democrats need a new wave of cheap labor. Because what happens with migration and immigrants is that once they get to this country, they'll do the work for $2 an hour. But after a while, you know, they become Americans. And they want the same thing that all Americans want, which is they want to have their own house. They want to have a picket fence. They want their kids to go to school, to go to good schools. They want the same things every American wants. So that $2 an hour labor ain't going to cut it no more. And at which point you're no longer useful to the Democrat Party. It's time to bring in the next wave of guys, next wave of illegals, or next wave of immigrants to come in and be that next generation of cheap labor. And that's why you see the cities in the condition that it's in.
Yeah. It upsets me because, like, I've again, like, being here. I mean, I wasn't, like I said, I make it very, very clear. Like, I was not born and raised here, but over nearly 20 years, this city has meant more to me than most people than I can even explain in a full in like right now in this moment.
You've just watched a clip from our live episode. Click the description to watch the full episode. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this.